Good evening, everyone. Reading passages from Avodat Hashem, Inner Work, Teachings of Rav Ashlag. We're on page 119. The Rebbe Zatzal would say, quote, "When we are not given happiness, it is so that we can attain true happiness." So when we are not given happiness, when we do not receive happiness on a base level, or when the regular things of life do not present us with happiness, it is so that we can attain true happiness. So the basic levels of happiness are not being attained, so that we search for deeper, truer happiness. The Rebbe Zatzal would also say, quote, "We don't know how hard it is to not be self-centered until we actually try to do it." Right? It can stay a concept in our head that it's hard to not be self-centered, but we don't actually understand how hard it is until we truly, genuinely try not to be self-centered, not to have ourself at the center. To truly expand our awareness, our attention, our interest, our focus outside of ourselves, outside of our limited self-consciousness, our separate self-consciousness. Once we actually try to do the work to not be self-centered, then we recognize how difficult it truly is to not always be me, but to feel, even in one's own self, the extension beyond the me at the center, the identity at the center, and the true self which extends and expands beyond the limited self-consciousness. Another quote. The Rebbe Zatzal would say, quote, "The more effort we make in our spiritual work, the more we see ourselves going backwards. We feel more distant from God and more distant from true giving than before. But really this is not true. We are just seeing the truth and realizing that we need a great salvation. This is not going backwards, but is actually spiritual progress." Right? So the more effort we make in our spiritual work, the more we can see ourselves going backwards. We feel more distant from God and more distant from true giving, because we start to recognize how far we are. Once we get a little bit close, once we open a bit, then we recognize the actual distance between us and a full realization, a full awakening, and a full capacity to be truly giving from a place of fullness and union rather than a place of deficiency. So it can seem like we're going backward because we actually feel more distant from the divine, when in fact it's actually a movement forwards of progress, because we are truly seeing and realizing the great need for salvation from the limited self-consciousness, the separate self-consciousness, from living through our identities, those roles which distance us from our true nature, our true self, that pure essence of being, of a human being, not riddled with name and identity and history and memory, which aren't bad, but are aspects which get in the way of us being our pure self, breathing as a pure creature, as an animal, as a pure being, a spiritual animal. Emunah is the true blessing. If we have Emunah, we have everything. If we are without Emunah, we have nothing. Right? Again, so this central piece of Emunah, the embodied faith, it is a true blessing. If we have Emunah, if we have that embodied faith in the darkness of Galut, of the exile paradigm where God is hidden from us, if we have Emunah, we have everything. We have such a strong embodied faith, this deep confidence in the truth of our being, in the truth of where we are, what we are, and why we are. We have a deep embodied faith in our purpose. We have a deep embodied faith in God's radiance in all things, always, even if we're not experiencing it. Even if we're not feeling it, the embodied faith pulls us through. It guides us for how to be, for how to think, speak, and act in this world, as if we felt God's presence in all moments. So if we have Emunah, we have everything. If we're without Emunah, we have nothing. Even if a person has a lot of possessions and even a great knowledge of Torah, without Emunah, a person does not have anything. Emunah is what we need to focus on, right? So just a reiteration of the above passage. Even if a person has a lot of possessions, a lot of money, a lot of wealth, or a lot of great knowledge, even in Torah or outside of Torah or in spirituality, it doesn't matter. Without Emunah, a person has nothing. Emunah is the thing we need to focus on. Embodied faith. Faith in God's unity. Faith in everything being an extension and an expression of the divine, being sacred, including us. Emunah in the purpose of creation, for us to awaken, for us to heal, to become closer to our true form, to become closer to the divine, to be and live and speak as that, to be the voice of the divine in a true way, not a bypass way, in a humble way, in a pure, clean way, not with ego, not with flamboyance, just pure, simple, human, pure, speaking, divine, radiating, emanating divine light through our being, through how we interact with the world, how we interact with each other, seeing the God in each other, and loving each other, a spiritual love from a pure, holy place inside. So it all starts here with our own connection to ourself, which may seem antithetical at the self at the center, but it's the pure self, the true self, which then allows us to bring that out to the world. The saying, love your friend as yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, as yourself, this is the first step, right? You can't love your friend as yourself if you're not loving yourself first, as an expression and an extension of the divine. So sometimes the focus has to come in towards the self so it can go out towards the other in a pure form. Final passage for the night. We need to accustom ourselves to act as we would in the presence of God. That's just what we were saying. To act with emunah, as if we would be thinking, speaking, and acting as if we felt the presence of God with us. That is what emunah is. To act in that way even when we don't feel it, but to imagine what we would feel like if we felt that, and thus to live from that place even when we're not feeling it. Okay, friends, have a wonderful night.